Author's POV. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the city that hid its secrets behind towering skyscrapers and dim alleyways. This was a world divided. The lavish life of the elite contrasted sharply with the struggles of those barely managing to survive. Among them was Y/N, a second-year art student, who juggled the impossible every day. The weight of her mother's illness, cancer that had taken its toll for a year, bore down on her shoulders, forcing her to split her time between classes, assignments, and part-time jobs that hardly paid enough to cover the mounting hospital bills. Meanwhile, the city's underbelly moved under the guise of corporate luxury. Jungkook, a young, charismatic billionaire CEO, commanded an empire that stretched far beyond the visible world of business. Unknown to everyone, his clean-cut corporate image was merely a facade for his true identity, a ruthless underworld mafia king, controlling the city's dark secrets with an iron fist. Their worlds were never meant to intersect, but destiny had a way of aligning even the most unlikely of stars. Y/N's POV. Exhausted, eyes barely staying open, Y/N sits in the dimly lit break room of a cafe she works at during evenings. Her phone buzzes, and she sighs deeply, knowing it's probably another bill reminder. Y/N, another day, another shift. Just a few more hours, and then I can work on my art project. She mumbles to herself, rubbing her eyes to shake off the sleepiness. Her schedule was suffocating: art school during the day, working at a small cafe in the evening, and delivering food on weekends. She hardly had time to breathe, let alone finish her projects or see her mother. The hospital visits were short, filled with comforting words that masked the heavy fear she carried every time she saw her mother hooked up to the machines. Y/N's friend, Mina, you look like you haven't slept in days. Are you okay? Mina hands her a cup of coffee as she slides into the seat across from her. Y/N.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Just tired. Mom's condition isn't improving, and I need to pick up another shift to make ends meet. As soon as the shift ended, Y/N rushed to the hospital, wearing the same worn-out sneakers she had since high school. Her part-time jobs and art projects were starting to bleed together into a blur of exhaustion, but giving up was not an option. Jungkook's POV. The hospital was the last place he wanted to be. He had business to handle, dangerous deals to finalize, and rivals to track down. Yet, here he was, blending in effortlessly with the hospital's hustle and bustle as soon after he returned from the business trip. Dressed in an expensive suit, he could easily pass for a concerned family member visiting a patient. But his purpose was far from innocent. He was hunting. Jungkook, speaking quietly to his assistant on the phone. Have you found any leads yet? This man can't hide forever. Make sure our presence here goes unnoticed. I can't believe this MF chose a hospital to hide. Just as he hung up, something, or rather, someone, caught his eye. A young woman with disheveled hair hurried past him, her eyes red from worry or lack of sleep, or maybe both. Her clothes were clean but worn, and she carried an aura of determined fragility. She looked out of place among the sterile white walls and beeping machines. Unconsciously, Jungkook found his gaze lingering on her. She moved with purpose, rushing to the front desk, and talking urgently with the nurse, her voice barely holding back panic. Y/N, please, is there any update on my mom's test results? I need to know if the chemotherapy is working. For a moment, Jungkook's cold, calculating demeanor softened. He had seen desperation before, but there was something different in her eyes, a relentless hope that even his hardened heart found intriguing. Jungkook observed her for a brief moment, noting the tired determination in her expression. He turned away, refocusing on the task at hand, his thoughts quickly returning to the business he needed to settle. Y/N POV. I drag my exhausted body back to my tiny, dimly lit apartment, each step feeling heavier than the last. My hands are stained with remnants of paint, splashes of blues and reds from a rushed project, barely wiped clean before I had to clock out. It's 6 p.m., and the flickering kitchen light casts a lonely glow over the chipped countertops and cluttered table. My backpack feels like it's pulling me to the ground, weighed down with textbooks and unfinished sketches. There's no time to rest. A mountain of assignments waits, scattered across my desk, taunting me with their deadlines. This cramped space, with its worn-out furniture and peeling wallpaper, has become my refuge, even if it's more of a cage these days. It's been a year since Mom's diagnosis, an entire year of endless nights, shuffling between my art classes at the university and the sterile, cold walls of the hospital. A year of barely making ends meet, jumping from one part-time job to another, struggling to stay afloat as the weight of medical bills crushes my every breath. I toss my bag to the floor and run a hand through my tangled hair, feeling the fatigue settle deep in my bones. My gaze falls to the only framed photograph on the shelf, a picture of Mom and me from happier days, both of us laughing in the sun. I choke back the lump in my throat, forcing down the desperation clawing at my chest. There's no room for breaking down. Not when I'm all she has left. Mom, I promise I'll take care of everything, I whisper, my voice barely more than a tremor in the silence. My hands shake as I adjust the collar of my blouse and prepare to start my night shift at John Corporation. The silence of my small apartment feels suffocating, so I take one last glance around before grabbing my bag and keys, knowing that once I leave, the world outside will consume me once again. I head out into the night, the city's hum a distant reminder of the life I lead, one of paperwork, deadlines, and endless hours at the company that never sleeps. At John Corporation, the fluorescent lights burn overhead, casting an artificial glow over rows of file cabinets. The office is weirdly quiet, save for the soft hum of computers and the occasional shuffle of papers. There's no time for distractions, no room for anything but the job. I sort through endless stacks of files, meticulously checking every detail, my exhaustion growing with each passing minute. It's the same routine every night, an endless cycle of organization and precision, the weight of responsibility pressing down as the hours slip by. No one notices the fatigue on my face, the way my eyes feel heavy from the lack of sleep. I'm just another cog in the machine, working through the night shift, my world shrinking to the flicker of the screen and the rustle of paper. It's a thankless job, one that never seems to end. Jungkook's POV. The music in the nightclub blares in my ears, the beats heavy and relentless, but it doesn't faze me. I've long learned to tune out the noise, both literal and metaphorical. My focus remains on the task at hand. The VIP section is a safe haven for people who want to be seen but not really noticed, and I'm no different. My whiskey glass spins slowly in my hand, the amber liquid catching the neon lights. But despite the clinking of glasses and the laughter echoing around me, my mind is elsewhere. Taehyung and Jimin slide into the seats beside me. Their arrival is almost seamless, like a well-practiced move. We've been through too much together to need words for the usual greeting. The weight of the underworld presses down on us, but we wear it like armor, unbothered by the usual distractions. I glance over at Taehyung, who's already leaning forward, his sharp eyes scanning the room, always assessing, always alert. Got everything sorted? I ask, my voice low, the exhaustion creeping into my tone from all the chaos tonight. Taehyung smirks, leaning back in his seat but never fully relaxing. His eyes meet mine firmly, the gleam of mischief in them never far from the surface. We've got the deal locked down. But there's some complications. I grunt, rubbing the side of my neck as the tension from earlier starts to settle into my bones. I don't need complications right now. Complications? I repeat, raising an eyebrow. Jimin, sitting quietly beside him, lets out a small sigh, his fingers tapping a rhythmic beat on his knee, a silent sign of unease in the air. He doesn't speak unless it's necessary, and I know better than to push him. Instead, I turn my attention back to Taehyung, my eyes narrowing. Who's involved? Taehyung leans in slightly, his voice dropping to match mine in seriousness. A small-time group. Some low-level guys running an extortion scheme. They've been poking around our turf, trying to set up shop. Thought they could get away with a few rackets, maybe scare people into paying protection. Typical, I mutter under my breath, my eyes flicking to the crowd. People think they can get away with shit like that in my territory. Greedy, stupid. They never learn. They think they can threaten my people and walk away with a smile. What's the move? Jimin finally speaks up, his voice calm but filled with a quiet menace that's enough to make anyone listening sit up straight. We don't let them slip by. We make it clear. No more games. They need to be put in their place. I lean forward, my hands gripping the edge of the seat as anger simmers beneath the surface. This is my territory, my business. These small-time crooks think they can cross a line without consequences. It's not just about sending a message to them. It's about sending a message to anyone else who dares think they can step out of line. We'll handle it, I say, my voice colder than ice. I look at both of them, locking eyes with Taeyoung. No more games. Get them in the usual place. I'll be there in 10. Taeyoung nods without hesitation, signaling to the driver. Understood. The car's engine roars to life and the city lights blur outside the window as we head toward the meeting point. But as the car speeds through the streets, my mind drifts for a moment. The nightclub, the chaos, the faces in the crowd, it all feels like nothing compared to what I'm about to deal with. But I won't let it slide. Not this time. Not on my watch. The business comes first. Everything else can wait. Next day. Y/N's POV. The office was quieter than usual, save for the faint hum of the air conditioner and the steady clicking of keyboards. My eyes were starting to ache from staring at the screen for hours, but there was no choice as I was working overtime today. The deadline was approaching, and the stack of files on my desk seemed endless. I hadn't even realized how late it had gotten, the shadows outside the window stretching long into the night. My stomach growled, but I ignored it. There were too many things left to do, too many reports to finalize, too many details to sort out. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each passing minute a reminder that time was slipping away. Suddenly, my phone buzzed loudly, breaking the silence. My heart skipped a beat as I glanced down at the screen, seeing the hospital's number flash across it. A sense of dread washed over me, and without thinking, I answered. Nurse, Y/N, you need to come now. Your mother, she's had a stroke. The words hit me like a freight train, and everything in the office seemed to blur. The constant hum of the office, the clacking of keyboards, the muffled conversations from nearby cubicles, they all faded to nothing. My breath hitched in my chest, and my vision swam. Tears started to prick in my eyes as I could barely process the nurse's voice as it continued to speak, telling me more, but all I could hear was the ringing in my ears. I must have hung up on the nurse, because the next thing I knew, I was on my feet, fumbling for my coat and grabbing my purse. I didn't even stop to think about the piles of work left undone. All that mattered now was getting to my mother. I rushed toward the door, my steps quick, but in my haste, I wasn't paying attention. And that's when I collided with someone.